He was the man next door hosting barbecues, running a business and entertaining children at parties, as a clown. But beneath the floorboards of his modest Chicago home, 29 corpses were decaying, each one a victim of charm, manipulation, and pure evil.
Tonight in News Extra, the man who committed what may be the crime of the century. His name is John Wayne Gacy, convicted of killing 33 innocent people and destroying hundreds of lives.
In 1975, he was known as Pogo the Clown. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and he buried 29 bodies under his own home. John Wayne Gacy Jr. was born on March 17, 1942. He was the second of 3 children in a blue-collar Polish-Irish family on the south side of Chicago. His father, John Stanley Sr., was a machinist and World War I veteran, a proud, strict, and brutal figure. And his mother, Marion Elaine Robinson Gacy, she was a homemaker and was described as a kind and protective figure in Gacy's life. From an early age, Gacy endured constant ridicule. His father beat him with a razor strop and called him a sissy for being overweight and soft-spoken. His mother tried to shield him, but it was never enough. That emotional split between violence and protection would define his psyche. He craved his father's approval. He never got it. Gacy suffered from mysterious blackouts in his early age. He was hospitalized multiple times throughout his teens. At 17, he collapsed at school and was diagnosed with a heart condition, but no clear medical cause was found. Some doctors believed his symptoms were psychosomatic, rooted in stress and trauma. He dropped out of high school, left home, and wandered, always running and pretending. In 1964, Gacy seemed to turn things around. He married Marlynn Myers, the daughter of a wealthy KFC franchise owner. He moved to Waterloo, Iowa, and quickly became manager of 3 restaurants. Soon, they had 2 children. To the community, he was a rising star, young, driven, generous. He joined the Jaycees, a local civic group, and climbed its ranks. But behind closed doors, he was showing another side. He hosted parties with pornography and alcohol and began propositioning teenage boys. Fast forward to 1968, a 15-year-old boy accused Gacy of sexual assault. Gacy was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in the Anamosa State Penitentiary. He served just 18 months in the penitentiary and later paroled in 1970 for good behavior. His wife divorced him while he was behind bars, and he never saw his children again. Returning to Chicago, Gacy moved into 8213 West Summerdale Avenue in Norwood Park, a quiet, working-class neighborhood. He bought the home, started a construction company, and rebuilt his image from the ground up. To neighbors, he was a helpful individual. He plowed snow, hosted block parties, and even met First Lady Rosalind Carter during a Democratic fundraiser in 1978. He wore a pin identifying him as part of the Secret Service detail. But behind the scenes, he was collecting his victims. Gacy created a clown persona, Pogo the Clown. He sewed the costume himself, performed at hospitals, parades, and children's events. There's something unsettling about a grown man in clown makeup, but Gacy used it to disarm, to charm. He said, a clown can get away with murder. No one believed he meant it literally.
The clowning was relaxation for me. I enjoyed entertaining kids. Like some people are, they unwind in different ways, either by going out drinking or that. I could put on clown makeup and I was relaxed. And I enjoyed doing it. It was only twice a month that I did it.
Yeah, this was not used then for a lure to draw kids to you as the...
No, we would visit different hospitals and entertain the children there.
In 1972, the first known victim vanished, 16-year-old Timothy McCoy. Gacy picked him up at a Greyhound station. By morning, McCoy was dead, stabbed. Gacy later claimed it was self-defense, but he would admit to feeling pleasure afterward. That was the beginning. From 1972 to 1978, at least 33 young men disappeared. Most were teenagers, runaways, homeless, or employees of Gacy's construction business. He paid them cash, and some never made it home. He buried 29 of them beneath his house. In trenches he dug himself. He covered the scent with lime and concrete. When the crawl space filled, he began dumping bodies in the Des Plaines River. Inside the walls of Gacy's home, horror wore a disguise. His routine often began with luring young men, offering them for a job, drinks, drugs, or simply building enough trust to let their guard down. Then came the magic trick. Gacy would pull out a pair of handcuffs, sometimes blending it into his clown act. He'd first demonstrate by locking his own wrists behind his back, only to effortlessly free himself with a hidden key. Then he'd encourage the unsuspecting victim to try it themselves. Once they were restrained, the illusion turned into nightmare. Gacy would then subject his victims to brutal sexual assault and psychological torment. Often, he would pin them down, straddle their chest, and force oral sex. But that was only the beginning. He escalated the abuse with torture, burning them with cigars, humiliating them by forcing them to act like animals, even climbing on their backs and yanking makeshift reins tied around their necks. After sodomizing his victims, he sometimes used foreign objects, dildos, prescription bottles, as tools of further degradation. To restrain them, Gacy used a custom method inspired by the Houston mass murders. He shackled their ankles to a 2x4 with handcuffs on either end. The cruelty didn't stop there. He was known to taunt his captives during the ordeal, mocking them, controlling them. And in some cases, he would drown them in the bathtub just enough to bring them back, only to do it again. Gacy's method of murder was as calculated as it was cruel. His preferred technique involved slipping a rope tourniquet around his victim's neck, then slowly twisting it tighter using a handle, often the shaft of a hammer. He chillingly referred to this as the rope trick, and more than once he told his victim, "This is the last trick."
The rope trick is not, the way I've described the rope trick is it's nothing more than a tourniquet. Mm-hmm. And I had explained it to them, I even demonstrated it to them. It would cut off the air. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to kill somebody, you just put it on their neck and twist it 3 times or 4 times or whatever until the person stopped moving.
In some cases, death wasn't immediate. Victims would convulse violently, sometimes for over an hour, before finally succumbing. Others died quicker, suffocated by cloth gags jammed deep into their throats. Nearly all of Gacy's murders took place between the hours of 3 and 6 in the morning. Only his final 2 victims deviated from that grim routine. After the killings, Gacy often kept the bodies under his bed for a day, sharing the same room with death. When he was ready, he would bury them in the crawlspace beneath his home, occasionally sprinkling quicklime to speed up decomposition. A few were taken to his garage where he embalmed them himself before burial. This was until the disappearance of one young boy. On December 11, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast vanished. He had just finished his shift at Nissen Pharmacy in Des Plaines. His mother, waiting in the car, saw him walk back in, but he never came out. The serial killer came under suspicion in December 1978 when authorities investigating the disappearance of Robert Piest. Before he disappeared, Piest told co-workers he had a meeting with a contractor about a potential job. And that man was John Wayne Gacy. Des Plaines detectives visited Gacy's home to question him. He was polite, even offered to meet at the station. But something didn't sit right. He seemed nervous. His car reeked of a strange odor, rotting decay masked with cologne. Police ran his background, and they found his 1968 conviction for sodomy. And that was enough to get a search warrant. On December 13th, 1978, they entered his home. They didn't find a body, not yet. But they did find suspicious items: handcuffs, a plank with holes for restraints, driver's licenses that didn't belong to him, and a receipt from Nissan Pharmacy, linked to Robert Piest. That was enough to start surveillance. For 10 days, Des Plaines officers followed Gacy around the clock. They watched him drink, drive, dump suspicious packages, and ramble incoherently. He invited them in for breakfast, tried to bribe them, threatened them, confessed, then denied. His mind was unraveling. He was breaking down. In one moment of panic, he drove to his lawyer's office, handed over a signed confession, and declared, "I've killed 30 people, maybe more." Then he laughed. On December 21st, detectives returned with another warrant, this time to dig. Under the floorboards, they found human remains, bone, clothing, flesh. The smell was overwhelming. The horror was unthinkable. Over the next days, 29 bodies were exhumed from beneath Gacy's home. 4 more were recovered from the Des Plaines River. 33 young men, each story lost, each family shattered. And yet, even with the bodies in plain view, John Wayne Gacy kept smiling.
This whole thing is over. You might be witnessing one of the most horrible crimes, perhaps, in a century.
At 11 p.m., John Wayne Gacy was officially arrested. He showed no resistance, no emotion, just a blank stare as police led him from the home where bodies lay buried beneath his feet. What followed was one of the most chilling confessions in American history. In a detailed statement, Gacy admitted to killing 30 young men, though he insisted they were all either hustlers or runaways. He blamed his victims, claimed some deaths were accidents, others self-defense, but when asked why he buried them at home, his answer was simple: "I ran out of room in the crawl space." By January 1979, the body count had reached 29 under his house, 4 in nearby rivers. Victims ranged from ages 14 to 21. Many were never identified. Some were known to have worked for Gacy. Others had vanished from bus stops or streets just miles from his home. Dental records were used to identify the remains. In many cases, families had waited years, hoping their sons were still alive. Now they received only bones. As prosecutors prepared for trial, they needed to understand what made Gacy tick. A series of psychiatrists were brought in to evaluate him. The question, was he legally insane? On February 6, 1980, Gacy went on trial before Judge Louis Garripo. Because of massive publicity, the jury had to be selected from Rockford, Illinois. In the year before his trial, Gacy spent over 300 hours with psychiatrists at Menard Correctional Center, claiming he suffered from multiple personalities: the contractor, the clown, the politician, and Bad Jack, the alter ego he blamed for the killings. His lawyers entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Defense attorney Robert Mata called Gacy a Jekyll and Hyde figure. Several psychiatric experts diagnosed him as a paranoid schizophrenic, but prosecutors countered that he was fully sane, presenting evidence of careful planning under his house. Pathologist Robert Stein testified that 13 victims died of asphyxiation, 6 by ligature strangulation, 1 by stabbing, and 10 by undetermined causes, dismissing the defense's claim of accidental erotic asphyxia as highly improbable. Survivors gave harrowing testimony, one even vomiting on the stand. By the 5th week, Gacy demanded a mistrial, objecting to his lawyer's insanity plea. The trial pressed on. After just 1 hour and 50 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Gacy guilty on all counts: 33 murders, plus sexual assault and indecent liberties with a child. It was, at the time, the most murder convictions ever secured against one person in United States history. In the sentencing phase, the jury deliberated for 2 hours before sentencing him to death for every murder committed after Illinois reinstated the death penalty in 1977. Judge Garippo set his execution date for June 2, 1980. Gacy was sent back to Menard Correctional Center, where he spent the next 14 years on death row, constantly proclaiming his innocence. Isolated in his cell, he turned to painting. His subjects were as unsettling as they were eclectic: clowns, religious icons, the 7 dwarfs, skulls, his own home, Elvis Presley, and John Dillinger. These paintings were exhibited and sold at auctions, sparking outrage over the public consumption of a serial killer's art. In 1984, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld Gacy's conviction and ordered his execution for November 14th. He appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and his appeal was denied. In 1986, his new attorney argued that his original defense had been ineffective. That petition was dismissed. In 1988, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld his conviction again and set a new execution date. After the Supreme Court denied his final appeal in October 1993, Illinois formally set 10th of May 1994 as his execution date. On May 9, 1994, Gacy was moved to Stateville Correctional Center for execution. That afternoon, he shared a private picnic with his family. His last meal, a bucket of KFC, French fries, a dozen fried shrimp, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. That evening, he received last rites from a Catholic priest before entering the execution chamber. Outside, more than 1,000 people gathered. Most cheered for the execution, some wearing T-shirts mocking his clown persona with slogans like "No tears for the clown." A handful of anti-death penalty protesters stood nearby. At 12:40 a.m., the lethal injection began, but the chemical solidified and clogged the IV line, delaying the process. After the line was replaced, the execution resumed, taking 18 minutes.
During the second chemical, there was some problem with that chemical gelling in the line. We're not real clear whether it was the blood clotting with the needle.
One prosecutor remarked, "He got a much easier death than any of his victims."
He got a much easier death than any of his victims. In my opinion, he got an easier death than he deserved.
Gacy showed no remorse. He told his lawyer the state was murdering him. His reported final words were, "Kiss my ass."
Hey, I got news for you. I killed 33 times. You're only gonna kill me once. Gacy outsmarted him again.
At 12:58 a.m. on May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead. His brain was removed for study by Dr. Helen Morrison.
John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m.
I'm glad it's over. I just wish that there could have been more suffering, so to speak. The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
And I'm just glad that finally a little justice was done in this matter.
Gacy was cremated, and the location of his ashes remains undisclosed.
I feel justice has been served. Just like Tim said, I'm glad it's over.
From community volunteer and part-time clown to convicted serial killer, John Wayne Gacy's story ended in an Illinois execution chamber. Yet even in death, his crimes continue to haunt the public imagination, a chilling reminder of how evil can hide in plain sight.